So it happens. But yeah, so they didn't succeed in this paper in replacing gamification with gameful design, but it might. Once gamification gets enough negative coding, it might move. Okay, yep. So what do you think of this? I don't like this particular diagram because that's not the way I see the difference between games and serious games. But this is the definition they've used. So toys are a whole thing that are just about playing. Playful design is using parts of what's playing. Serious games are whole games, and gamification, or gameful design, is using parts of games. So that's why gamification, in their definition, that's where it fits. In my definition, where you need a pre-existing thing, that's not where it fits. So but this whole versus parts thing, playing versus gaming, having those on different axes. So this to some extent is the number of rules involved, perhaps. Is that because that's what you're suggesting? Is that's the number of rules, and that's how much of the thing you're using. So surely, at this point, this is where you're not using any game design elements at all. From whole to parts, surely at the far end of parts is nothing. So there must be normal applications that aren't playful in any way, or gameful in any way, over this far side. And there is the no rules to lots of rules. But they must have some element of, there must be some axis that we're not seeing, which is some sort of enjoyability or something. I don't, because our toys are all things that you play with toys. And as toys move to parts of toys, or having an item versus not like having an academic practice or a design practice versus an object on a continuum is a tricky one for me, because objects stop being objects at some point. And I'm not sure if the parts are really that's what we mean, because if I have a toy that has multiple parts, if I take it apart, are those individual bits toys? And sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not. And how do I know that? Like Lego. Is every individual block of Lego a toy? Or is it only when you get a certain number of them that they become a toy? Where does that toy sit on the spectrum? So yeah, for me it's a challenge. But I know this is what we do. We do two axes, put things in, define them. Remember we talked about that? Two axes, really easy to do. It's great. So yeah, another example of it. Okay, so and they also have this. So we're now at the conclusion. So fully fledged games, game elements, playful design, pervasive games, which is an interesting, everything else looks like the diagram up top here, except this now has this whole ending games, playful, another view. So, if we go to the conclusion and then we'll take a break.
I haven't not really marked much in the conclusion because it's mainly repeating what they had in a very short way. Well, again, they said that they want their new term gamefulness to complement the way older term playfulness in a systematic way. As I said, that it's better to use gameful design because it has less baggage. again, how to tell if a game is a game or a gamified application. Like I said, mostly repetition of stuff. But they also say that the data of gamified applications that exist right now will help to determine the term later in a better way, and that their definition might not be a perfect definition. I like that they say it themselves, and that time might prove that the definition has to be changed a lot, and that this moment is a start of a definition, to have something to say, so we have that definition, we need to change it, instead of we have nothing, we need to create a definition. This, I think, seen like that, this paper is really a good idea. And yeah, it made us discuss a lot, which I think is a good thing too. So overall, I really liked the paper, even so in parts I skipped that. It has a lot of buzzwords in very short texts, but I guess if you want to make a definition and refer to the older terms so you can find the definition, it's maybe necessary. So I don't blame them for it.
Yeah. It's also written in a way that is easily quotable, right? And you know, and as an academic, I know that what a PhD student is looking for is they're looking for something that's about about sort of 15 to 20 words long, right? That they can put quotes on and put a citation to, right? So if you want to get those citations, you need to write it in that way that makes it easy to do that, right? This is like working with the media, right? If you are going to talk to a radio station, you know you're going to be cut, right? If they're recording your conversation, you know you're going to have sound bites that are going to be cut. If you say something controversial, you have to keep speaking so that to try and make the cut as obvious as possible if they're trying to reshape what you said. If you want them to quote you accurately, you need to create sound bites that are the right length for the radio station to play. Right? And if you speak in that way, it's far easier for the editor, when they go back to the studio, to go, oh, okay, there's a 5-word sentence that he said that I can put on and be a quote. Right? And that's what they'll try and do. They'll try and cut you so they can fit their time frame. So you don't rabbit on, you don't have extending sentences, and you never use clauses when you're speaking on the radio. Right? You never make a statement that then has a clause, because they'll cut it off without the clause. Right? So if you're going to have a clause, you've got to say that clause immediately with no pause. Right? So if you're going to say something like,
put it in the middle of a sentence.
yeah, put it in the middle of it, make it obvious that this is that if they're trying to cut you, it sounds like they're trying to cut you. But yeah, so no, you can write in ways that make it easier for people to quote you, and this is written in a very quotable way. What are other people's thoughts on the paper? Who is comfortable using that definition for serious games and gamification? Who would be happy using that? Who would prefer my one? That's a bit harsh. Because I'm happy for you not to use my one, right? That's fine.
Can we please distinguish between their definition of serious games and their definition of gamification?
So their definition of serious games is that when you intend to make an entire game.
You have an entire game. That's
yep.
what they say.
Yep. So for them, a serious game is you intend to make an entire game, and a gamification is you don't intend to make an entire game. You just happen to be picking up bits and pieces of an entire game and using it. Right? So I'm trying to think of where you would find this in other media, right? Where the intention changes the definition. And you see it in criminal conviction, perhaps. Right, with murder versus manslaughter, your intention to kill someone versus you just happen to kill them seems to be one of the areas they use intention to make a distinction. But in most real life situations, if you start using bits of another thing, then you know, I don't get so much of this clean distinction. I mean, I suppose if you're looking at house and you're doing a nautical theme where you start using round windows, you're not trying to make a boat, but you're using nautical features or something, right? And in architecture, where you try and allude to something else, that might be, and you'd still say you're making a building, you're just making a nautical themed building. So that might be like a gamification where you swap nautical for gaming, and either you're making a boat or you're making a nautical themed house. So what's a houseboat? Is that a nautical themed house, or is it a boat that's been turned into a house? And it's always at the boundaries that you have issues, right? And that's for these terms as well. Always on the edge of serious game versus gamification. Are you going to have boundary case discussions? And you know, as I say, with gender, you have the same thing, right? You have those boundary conditions where there was that 1960s South African athlete who had female body but had male DNA. She was a hermaphrodite, probably a chimera, right? Male or female? Boundary case. Don't really know. Can't really decide. So even in reality, we don't have those clear distinctions. And so with an artificial distinction like gamification and serious games, you're going to find many more boundary conditions.
Yeah, I have a very utilitarian approach to language and to definitions, so you do that for a purpose of explaining something. So I don't see any value defining something just for the sake of defining it, and that's it, right? Well, like, what's the point of them defining it here in this paper? They haven't used it, they haven't made any meaningful distinctions of why this or that definition. So in math, you say, let's this mean that, let's this mean that, and then we build something on top of it. So I kind of like that. So depending on what I want to express, I would either use or not use particular definition, and I would state, I mean this by that, and so on, and progress to actually explaining something. Building kind of a generic absolute definitions, I don't think makes sense here, especially with the field which really evolves. Like, nobody really knows what games are. They are kind of an evolving medium. It's relatively new. It sort of changes its shape as new games show up. They kind of challenge the existing status quo, and things kind of change.
So yeah, so I mean that's the argument that basically is as language as communication.
Yeah.
Then your objective is to communicate, and therefore you just have to negotiate with the person you're talking to what your terms mean, and once you agree on those terms, then you can move forward.
Yeah.
It is useful to have, if you can get a community agreement about what a particular word means, then that can be very useful. I don't know if this paper, it doesn't really succeed for me in that. Though it is well cited, and so a lot of people are using its definition of games and gamification. But there is the business side of what gamification is, which we now will move on to. But we'll take a 10-minute break and then we'll come back. So, yeah. Sorry, you're going to have a short time to talk about your business paper. Take 10-minute break. So come back at 38, 35. Let's take a 10-minute break. Maybe.
Nei, faen. Men det er ikke noe forsikringsselskap. Det er de som skylder der, eller noe rådbyr. Det er ingen å si at det er bra. Så hadde de ventet på svar fra Møller, så du har ikke noe. Nei, den står der. Har du hatt noe bein som så vidt går? Ja, jeg gikk til Bonus i år, jeg. Ja, og så ned på posten. Og så tok jeg bussen av den. Jeg hadde sånn pakke. Det var ikke noe jeg var. Du går. Og det? Det var det Olav som har sett det litt til. Nei, jeg er ikke. Jeg vet ikke. Det skjer det. Ja. Du var med? Ja, det var det. Det er så ikke kjekt med. Både klar, men så det ikke. Ikke spise. Som jeg hadde på Coop for ikke mer gå så jævlig langt. Coop er jo dårlig i livet.
Du begynte på Folkensund? Ja, det er noe sånn man har sånn uøvende deler på. Altså, man har byttet mot tog. For jeg skal gå ikke, og så bytter jeg tilbake. Så vil ikke jeg bo ikke.
Presentasjon først.
Vil jeg det hvis jeg går?
Hæ?
Vil jeg det hvis jeg går?
Ja.
Kanskje jeg er glad for det.
Vil jeg det hvis jeg går?
Nei, ikke egentlig.
There's so much time left now. Where is this on the floor? Where's trash? I think it's trash.
Okay, don't swear. You're still on the internet.
What? No. Why? No. No. So what did I miss? Nothing. And say that you're still on the internet.
Yes, I think it
Took me a second. How late is it anyway?
1:34.
So we're going to make longer than 11, like always? I'll glad to defeat that Simon will probably took out.
Doesn't help. Doesn't help us spend the time.
Like an hour ago. Not that slow.
Sånn kan det være.
I'm like so lekker, I'm so hooked on it. I'm so scared of it.
Ikke å spise den her, sånn som den her. Så farlig er det ikke. Smaker ikke det.
Who creates yogurt that is free of fat? Why?
No, I don't care.
But it doesn't taste good if there's no fat in the yogurt. Like milk, there has to be fat in it.
You don't like no-fat yogurt?
And I don't like no fat milk or low fat milk. It's really mad that it's cheaper to buy low fat milk than normal milk.
Well, that's because
That's
there's a
not
fat
right.
tax in Norway, and there's a sugar tax in Norway. There's a bad for you tax in Norway, right? Where the government decides things are bad for you, they tax it.
In Germany, things like that are called luxury tax. We have it on coffee.
Yeah, there is they do kind of define luxuries, but the luxury tax is a bit more general than what you'd normally consider as luxuries. So is it here that, yeah, so fruit, sometimes fruit isn't luxury, but what were some of the things? I think some of the meat I saw was on luxury. Yeah, they've picked some odd things. So yeah, it's, yeah.
Yeah, luxury things depend on context as well. So if you're like on a 10-day hike, an apple is a luxury item.
I would agree, right? You're going to have to carry that bunch of water a long way.
Yeah.
A light tent is also luxury.
Yeah.
Yeah, toilet paper.
But for a very different reason, usually, right? One's a luxury because it's heavy, one's a luxury because it's light. It's a
A lot of things you take for granted at home are suddenly luxury items. And you really miss them, and you would pay a lot to get them.
Okay, so the International Journal of Managing Information Technology, IJMIT. Hey, we? I don't know if we've talked about impact factors. Have we talked? Have you guys talked about? Have we talked about impact factors to you guys? Do you know what an impact factor is? Okay, that's something we should probably talk about at some point. We'll get through this discussion, and if we've got time, we'll discuss input factors. Okay, and also next week. So before we go on, next week I have a problem because on Tuesday I'm going to be in Romania. And on Thursday, I'll be at Helsinki. I'm doing an EU project on a serious game, right? So it's very physical, but it's designing a game to have playful family heritage recording, right? So we're gamifying, documenting your family history. Okay. So we could have that as the session next week. How do we do this? But so I won't be around. So I was wondering if we could do the Thursday session this week to get another session and then have no sessions at all next week. Okay. So I know Sebastian needs to come up and give a talk. So I was thinking of getting him to give his talk on Thursday, his presentation on Thursday, and we'll give you the stuff he's going to present this afternoon, and then you guys can read it for Thursday. Would that be right? And then we just say no serious games next week?
Moment, I've got an exam on Thursday.
This Thursday?
This Thursday. Like the day after tomorrow.
Right.
I forgot.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. You're recording anyway.
Yes, we will record.
Maybe I'm done until then anyway, I don't know.
Okay. Is it a morning exam?
It's I think I have got 10 hours of frontal exam.
Okay.
Home exam? Color?
Home exam.
Home exam? Yes.
Right.
If you want to call it home exam, I don't know.
Right, home exam.
How we call it.
I didn't do something like that yet. We don't have that in Germany.
Don't worry, we do a lot of things you don't. A lot of strange things that they don't do.
It's an exam, and they're not checking my ID. That's wrong to me.
Yeah, well, we use that with a presentation where you have to talk to us for 15 minutes about your solution. So that's how we check. But okay, so so no sessions next week, but we will do a Thursday session. We'll record it for you. Okay, so social business transformation through gamification.
Okay. Yeah, so they're talking about that gamification has become a modern business practice, and that they've used game characteristics like goals, rules, playfulness, elements of fun, feedback, reward, and promotions to solve real-world business problems. Companies determine what content and experience are high value and see how customer actions correlate with business success. And that gamification acts as a layer on top of a social collaboration software. And then they have the key trends, like sharing motivation, influence behavior, gaming principles, and game objectives in the figure 1. And then they have real-world business challenges, and here they have in the 3, and there they have same type of information, but then they chose to have it in text instead of the figure. So it's kind of weird that they chose 2 different.
I find this figure bizarre,
Yeah.
right? So so you guys know Edward Tufte and theory on minimal information presentation and how to like ink to data ratios. So the idea of Tufte's kind of minimalistic approach to information is you should have the max amount of information and the minimum amount of ink, right? So here, why are these 3D beveled? How does that help?
It was easier to read the next real-world business challenges in plain text instead of in the figure. So
This is much easier to read.
Yeah.
Why does this have a sort of arrow heading out? Why is this a button that is key trends? Why is this beveled at all? Why is it blue? I just so much kind of let's make a 3D map. Woo! Yeah. Don't like it. Don't do that kind of graph for me. If you do figures for my master's thesis, I'll point it out and go ugly. Fix it. Make it proper. Don't make it stupid. The only reason you might do this is if you were trying to get people to get permission to reprint it in some way or something. An image. But yeah, rather than text. But yeah, okay. So, real world business challenges?
Yeah. So, yeah, they talk about that cultural changes in the organization could be a challenge, or if it could be hard to see if the gamified system is a success or a failure. Lack of motivation, lack of understanding the needs of the game, no meaningful choices, and lack of fun elements could be demotivating.
I found it odd that they went from having like, bolded short phrases, and in the last three they're going,
It seemed like those weren't so that important.
They either weren't important or they were added on later, or it seems to be because obviously you would think, oh, maybe it's because they've got a hyphen here. And again, watch this for poor formatting. This is a minus, this is a hyphen. Right? That's because Word didn't think this was a hyphen and just left the original character you typed. This one went, oh, that's a hyphen, I will change it from a minus sign to a hyphen sign. And then this one, a bolded hyphen. So we now had three different separating characters. Here, no hyphen at all. It's just gone. It didn't even make it to existence. And then we're now back to a hyphen, but not a minus sign. And then we have no bolding and no hyphens, except here we have an actual minus because it's a connector, right? So that's the, but this is, don't do that. Your list should be better than that, right? I will be grumpy if I see that. Okay, but yes, so information much easier. Okay, yep.
Yeah, and then they're talking about that gamification is a factor of game design behavior and user experience. Yeah, I'm just talking a little bit about that. They say that gamefulness and playfulness attributes are important in user experience design. Then they have this good sentence in the below diagram, some of the important characteristics of the gamified design as given below. So it's below and below in the same sentence.
Right, yes, which is
there, right below the goals. Over goals.
Yes. In the diagram, in the below diagram, which
below.
In English should be in the diagram below, because in the below diagram is the wrong way to use that adverb. I'm not good with English nominations of words. What is below in that sentence?
Adverb.
It's an adverb. So, in the below diagram, you mean the diagram below, some of the important characters are given below. Yeah, a bit too much belowing.
Yeah, they have a lot of below in all the papers, so yeah. And they say that organizations define goals to monitor the business user behavior and give rewards.
Again, Word doing it asshole thing of putting 2 spaces in here.
Yeah, I do that a lot too. Yeah, they're talking about rules in the game and information to make decisions appropriately. And they're talking about managing resources in terms of time, effort, and status as a progress bar to encourage user to continue and complete tasks. Which organizations prefer to run reward campaigns to offer discounts, and they design reward structure that encourages desired behaviors. They give badges for adoption and frequency of use, and karma points for desired action within the platform. They practice intrinsic motivators like social competition and continuous feedback, highlighting achievements and mastery levels. And they talk about that leaderboards could be a good way of making competition in the organization. So the people could validate if they are performing well as per expectations or not. And they like to give points as redeemable towards skill, karma, and reputation. For quick response, level of participation, and quality improvements. And again, they talk about competition, so I think it's a lot of, they talk about the same things over and over again. And they talk about social connections, creating competition and provide customer support. That increases the level of engagement and interactions. And they talk about internal and external gamification, where employee-facing applications are internal and the customer-facing scenarios are external. Enterprise gamification takes learning from computer games and then integrates them in a business process to influence behavior. Then they talk about enterprise gamification benefits. They want to encourage their employees to make valuable contributions. Then they say it's not easy to design game mechanics to make boring activities a part of a game to improve engagement. And then they give an example of a way it could be easy. So,
which is
under 6.1.
Yeah.
That's weird. And they talk about key performance indicator, where they monitor employee performance, and it becomes a key decision driver to improve efficiency and overall productivity in the organization. And again, gamification practices are being used to improve efficiency. And they reward and motivate, or they create a reward and motivation platform to incubate, share, and execute ideas from business domains. And then they talk about the future, and he means that gamification frameworks will play an important role to offer design models for customer and employee-facing initiatives for a sophisticated and fast gamification deployment. And gamification in organizations bring a new way of thinking by aligning game objectives with the desired outcome in the organization. They want to build, or they need to build self-sufficient customer communities that will spur innovation, capture voice of customer analytics, and streamline services and support functions. And they want to recognize users who have performed key behaviors and motivate them to do more work. And they talk about enterprises will be forced to drive game-like behavior in existing applications or tasks to make them more engaging to the end user. Yeah, so that was the conclusion. And then they have 10 references, but they don't reference to them in the whole text. So it seems like they just search for the 12 first things that came up when they searched.
Google Scholar,
yeah.
Whack them in there. It'll be fine. Everyone will know. Yeah. Okay. So, what are your thoughts on this? How does it fit with the first paper?
Looks like a scientific paper.
It looks like it, but it's a lot of grammar errors and
Difficult to take it seriously.
And they're telling the same stuff over and over again, just mentioning it and mentioning it. So.
And they don't put the citations in here. Yeah. So it looks like
the terms they're using all the time.
You know, it has abstracts, it has keywords, it has introduction, it has state-of-the-art discussion. It talks about the gamification of thinking, so it kind of does the tries to do that, and key design, key elements, rewards, and things. Actually, I'm reading the headlines. It would look like a pretty good paper.
Yeah. But also with the headlines, they often use the headlines as part of the next sentence, so it's just the start of the sentence, and it's kind of weird.
Yes.
Like their levels and repetition, it signifies the level. What is it?
Yes. This looks like an academic paper, right? And published in a journal. It does. There's a lot of structural and form issues in this. This discussion here, enterprise resources, to drive game-like behavior in existing applications and tasks. So this here, the existing applications and tasks, is, for me, that definition of gamification. It means that gamification is something that exists and then you do something to it, right? So for me, this one doesn't, and it actually is different to the first one. It's saying, no, we're not reading games as in design a game from scratch, and gamification is just adding a few elements to stuff. They're saying, you've got something existing and you're making game elements on top of it. So I would suggest that this is with that definition. There are a lot of problems with this, and just, as you say, grammar issues, naming issues, citing issues where they'll make a claim and not cite anything. So what was it? They're doing the leading, according to leading experts and market thinkers. Okay.
And spiritual gurus.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
No, this is awful, right? And if you're going to, according to leading experts and market thinkers, well, I'm not sure what a market thinker is. Is someone you can buy their thoughts? But you should have a citation.
If it's a typo, it's a tinker.
Market thinkers. But yeah, so this, even if this were true, according to leading experts, cite, just that itself says you must cite at that point. Right? So immediately your academic hackles should come up and you go when you see that. Right? So that's, whereas the thirding paper, I disagree with a bunch of it, but it's well written and it's well cited and they cite things and they talk about things and they create a framework and they discuss the framework, and so trying to show you these two are quite different.
That's an understatement.
So you like that games are sticky, or?
Yeah.
Like they're so engaging and sticky.
Yes. Wow. Yeah, game making dynamics, mechanics, and psychology that make games so engaging and sticky. I can't get rid of it. It's too sticky. No, yeah. Okay, so again, getting you guys to recognize shit from quality, even though in terms of titles and if you read the headings, there is not that big a distinction between these two, right? They're both published in journals. This is published in a low-rating journal.
I can't find that rating for this journal.
Yeah.
I tried.
You can't find the impact factor.
No, I'm kind of skeptical to all journals starting with the IJ and something.
IJ and
journal or something. They tend to be.
They tend to have
Not
that
so good.
multicolored
Call
call for requests. If you guys ever get a call for requests with multiple colors in the titles, yeah, it's not serious. And also, if you ever get someone saying, "Hey, your master's thesis is really interesting. Would you like to publish it in our online series?" Right? Yeah, they're probably lying, right? Because they send that kind of out to everyone who publishes something called a master's, so that they can try and make you pay. You can publish it. Right? And yeah, just don't. And if you ever get tempted, talk to some of us first to see if it's a scam. Right? We've obviously sometimes we know these scams, and you can look up trolling, scamming journals as a thing. But as I said, we're going to talk. I'll just mention impact factor. So impact.
So how would you rate impact of your research? What metric would you use to say I had more impact than somebody else's research? How would you do that?
No idea.
Well, you did. You already made that distinction today.
But not for my work.
No, but you used a metric. What was the metric you used?
Citations?
Yes, you said it's been cited 800 times.
Yeah, but
That's a metric of impact.
you need some time to do that. And if one paper is like 1 year old and the other is like 3 years old, you cannot compare that.
Yeah.
Actually they do.
You
They
can normalize it.
What they do is they actually have a, there is actually 4 cited journals. There's a predicted number of citations it will end up with, right? Based on how old it is and how many times it's been cited. Just like Kickstarter has a how much money you've got in the first 4 days, they can try and predict how much money you'll end up with after your whole campaign. They do the same for academic publishing, right? If you, in 2 years, if you've got X number of citations, they look at the citation frequency normalization curve for this kind of paper in this kind of journal and say, well, if you're this point, you'll probably end up at this point. So they do actually do that. They normalize across and do predictions around how many your final citations might end up being. But citations, that would be one impact factor. What other impact factors might you be able to measure? Citations are the easy one.
Statistical significance, in the sense that if you have a test group or if you have groups for testing and control and the numbers are equal, or if you have a larger group number and your results are better, then there's a chance that your results actually are better.
That would measure the potential significance or the potential impact of your work, not necessarily actual impact. Because nobody knows about it, nobody cites it, and nobody refers to it, nobody uses it in their discussions.
And there's no impact.
Even if it's a fantastic study, it probably had no impact. So citations are often used as the
What
effect.
about the quality of the paper?
Hard to measure the quality of a paper.
We
Right?
didn't ask for easy to measure.
No. It would be nice if quality was one of the things you used as an impact factor.
But is really quality relevant for impact?
I don't know.
You could say, Microsoft Windows was not that of high quality, but it had huge impact.
True story.
Well, I think actually one of the largest impacts I had was actually a white paper that was never published in a journal. It was a review of game development in New Zealand, which turned into a review of computer science because that was the limiting factor, was the number of qualified programmers. And I sent it up to the ministry and they handed it around to everybody, and I got calls from Australia, from the Australian government officials, asking for my opinion on how they should encourage people to do computer science given the report I'd written. So governments were changing their policies based on my white paper that hadn't been published anywhere. It was just, I wrote it well and I cited things and I gathered data that was all government official data and just analysed it. And that had probably quite a large impact because it changed policy. But, no citations. So how else might you measure impact? How would you measure that impact? And would you consider that good impact or not? Right? If you made a serious game which changed government policy, would you consider that a large impact? No impact?
I think it's impact.
You'd call it impact? Perhaps hard to measure, but you call it impact?
But how does someone know if there's no citation or anything about it?
They don't. I know because I got the calls.
Yes, but who else knows?
No. That's the problem, right? So it had a very short-term, localized impact. Does it have a long-term impact? Well, you know, it got published in the text series, and so you could cite it, but it didn't really have any citations. It just got used a lot. And this is one of the challenges for game work. And one of the interesting discussions we have academics with game developers is, you know, an academic will publish something about pathfinding. Some of the game developers will read it and go, that's awesome, I'm going to use that. Will they cite it? No, they're a business. They just use the stuff in their game. They don't cite it. So how do you measure that impact? Is that impact? Now, if you change the way that every game company did its pathfinding, would you consider that impact? Probably. So is citations the only measure of impact? No. Is it? It's the easiest one, and it's the game we play as academics. No? And you know, there's a leaderboard. I can show you a leaderboard. If you go to Scholar, you guys have gone to Google. In Google Scholar, you probably haven't published, so you haven't got my citations. Now, who's this?
Johannes.
Johannes. So Johannes has one. And so he has 0 citations, right? So he's low on the leaderboard. But if I look up, say, so one of the authors in here, and next to one, you see there's the citation, and these are his co-authors, and he's got, that's the paper he is fourth author on, so it's got 750. But then he has another one, again, the touting with 400, and the touting again with 200, and then his PhD thesis at 150, and so, you know, so those are his scores, and he gets these 22 and 32 scores. But if you have a look in here, he's got these terms. So under gamification, you click on gamification, he is ranked second on the list of people who have been cited with the key phrase gamification in the thing. Now, why does he end up there? Well, that's because if you look up the targeting, okay, so he's actually lower scores, but he has these 3, and then not so much else, right? Whereas Lenny has published a lot more in combination, but here you see he's first author on a bunch of these, right? So he's done a bunch of first author and books, but Lenny outscores him on the leaderboard for gamification. And he doesn't have it here as one of his key areas, gamification. He has things like game design, playful design, gameful design. On gameful design, there are only 2 of them. He didn't. So this is kind of, you know, there's a whole game around publishing and scoring points and being the leader in your field. So I think he doesn't add gamification as something he does. So if we go back to here, I think actually on gamification, I'm just outside the top 10. Or where am I? I thought I was in here. Or maybe I'm outside the top 20. I think I'm in here somewhere. Where am I?
You haven't been publishing recently. Bypass.
Yeah, I thought I would see my face there for 52. I'm higher than that. Maybe I skipped over myself. I would have thought I would recognise my own face, but apparently not. But yes, you can look up these people and label maybe serious games is the better term for my label. But here, he's not got serious games. There's one game design he has and game user research. So yeah, these are, if I look up, you can see
You have been blacklisted.
There I am. I'm 180. So I also have a longer history, and then I've had a jump up at 13 and 14. So I'm getting more citations, but I don't have an 800, right? I've got a 42 and 30 in 30s, right? So I'm not scoring as many points. But you know, I've got a good trend line here now, so it looks like it's going up. So yeah. And I've got to add more search terms so I can go into rankings. Because here you're going against people with, let's see, in AI, Herbert Simon, 245,000 citations for his work. That's a lot. Though I would assume that under cognitive psychology, yep, he does pretty well. Where is, I would have thought, Knuth, Donald Knuth would have had quite a lot. And also, language guy, what's his name? But yeah, so he might not have a Google Scholar account. So, but these are the people who have Scholar accounts. So yeah, you can kind of play this game of who has high citations, how did they get there, what papers are being well cited. Interesting on-page, do you discount self-citation? That's an interesting discussion, right? Because one of the things you find is like Bushnell and Anderson in serious games violence issues is they self-cite a lot.
But if they publish a lot, then it will go citations.
And if Google Scholar doesn't make a quality assessment, so if you cite yourself in some, you know, paid for publication or your own publication, that you publish a monthly publication, call it a journal, and get it indexed on Google Scholar, do you suddenly start getting points in here to get yourself up the leaderboard and make yourself look more impressive to get tenure at your university or something? And in Norway, we play the game which is journal ranking. We have level 2s and level 1s, and we get paid money for gaming that system. So citations are one of the ways they measure impact. Though apparently, one of the Color Labs journals got demoted from level 2 to level 1, and when they queried why, the answer was, there were too many publications at level 2, so we picked one at random. That was their justification for turning a level 2 publication into a level 1 application. Basically, you then have to reapply to have it moved back up to level 2. And that changes it from being 1 point to 3 points, which is a difference between getting about 30,000 krona for publishing in it to 90,000 krona for publishing in it. So, changes the dynamics of the funding model a relatively large amount by just changing a journal. So, yes, so all parts of the game. Okay, right, so Thursday I'll get Sebastian to present on Thursday, and I'll push out the papers this afternoon after talking to him. Okay?